And welcome everybody. It is 2021. It's 11th of January 2021, and we are finally back in recording of the PnP Weeklies. We had a pretty long break, didn't we, Waldek? What's with that?
Yeah, we were away for 4 weeks.
4 weeks? 4 weeks?
For a long time, anyway. Yeah.
I think that the whole point of that one was that we saw that everybody is anyway hopefully taking some time off, and we were hoping that everybody will take time off, so we're not publishing too much content available. But now we're back, and with the PnP Weekly, where we talk about the latest of 365 in the Microsoft 365, concentrating on Microsoft Teams, Graph, SharePoint, and all of that stuff. And we do have a visitor, but before we go there, my name is Vesa Juvonen. I'm a principal program manager in the OneDrive SharePoint engineering team, and also run the Microsoft 365 Community Initiative. Is that the right way of saying that? I have no idea. Waldek, who are you?
Hey everybody, my name is Waldek Mastykarz. I am cloud developer advocate with Microsoft for Microsoft 365. And as Vesa said, today we have a guest.
Yes.
From Germany.
Correct.
Lovely fellow, no longer a fellow. You see, I've done it for a long time. I feel like a fellow MVP. No, I mean, I'm no longer an MVP, so not a fellow.
You lost your status, Waldek.
Correct. So there are something you can keep. Anyways, MVP, lovely Luise Freese. Welcome.
Hi there. Hi there. Nice to be here again.
So you've been in the show before as well, but I wanted to actually go back because we want to concentrate on something which you're taking a lead related on our community efforts in the Microsoft 365 side. But before we go there, can you do a quick intros for those who haven't heard about who are you and what you do?
Okay, so I'm Luise. I'm an M365 consultant from Germany, low-code developer, newly member of the PnP team, call myself a senior nerd, and do stickers at Lego a lot.
The stickers part is a really important thing. Now, they're really cool, by the way. They're really cool, by the way. Anyway, so Luise joined the PnP team, which is the PnP team is basically our MVP Microsoft team, which is running our community efforts in the Microsoft 365 area. And we have this kind of a unique setup within the Microsoft 365 where we want to work super closely with our MVPs. I don't know if people actually understand how closely we work together on a day-to-day basis in multiple messages and all of that together with our MVPs, so that the message what we are providing as a Microsoft is actually based on real world. Is that the right way of saying that? Waldek, you are an ex-MVP.
It is.
Why are we engaging with MVPs?
Well, I mean, it is absolutely that, right? Because if you build a product, and that's just not only related to Microsoft, but it's just to, like, whenever you build a product, you often get to distantiate yourself from the field, right? Because like you're building a product, you're not spending your days day in, day out, like Luise, with customers, because you're building a product. Sure, at some point you will get feedback, but at the end of the day, you want to be able to scale. You want to be able to reach as broad spectrum of your audience as you can to avoid like being inside a bubble and building something for one group, but not broad enough for the whole audience.
In a global scale, yes.
Exactly. So with MVPs, we want to achieve that diversity of opinions, feedback, audiences, companies from large to small, different verticals, different experiences. I want to get all of that. So on one hand, to get feedback from them, but also on the other hand, try to reach all these audiences that we otherwise wouldn't be able to reach by ourselves because there's just too few of us.
Yeah, and if we think about let's say how would I put this in a nice way? Traditional, classical way of maybe doing this community engagement is that there are a group of people in certain time zone, certain region, they think about what we're going to do, and then they do that. The problem of doing that is the lack of diversity, because it might be that the message which works in that region goes really well in that region, but how about Europe? How about APAC? How about other areas? So having more diverse a group of active members who are contributing and being active on contributing and sharing the message is super important. And also giving us honors.
Comes back. Exactly.
Luise you're absolutely an awesome example of keeping us honest. It's the brutally honest feedback, which we're not going to quote in some of the messages which we're getting every now and then. But that actually is a great way for Microsoft also understand the need what the field has. But now let's get back on. Let's let Luise to talk about slightly on her role in the PnP team. So what's your role on the PnP team?
Yeah. So what do I do? So that's a great question. So what I had in mind is so I focus more on the low code side of the house. And I always see that we put a lot of effort into dividing people and putting labels onto them and put people into boxes. I don't believe in that approach. I believe in we should take more effort on bringing people together so that we all can benefit from each other, regardless of technical background or tools that I want to use or experiences and which tools I want to, or which problems I want to solve. So when I want to have a solution, I just look at, okay, so what is available to me? But I do not look at Microsoft's org chart and say, hey, I only want to focus on graph.
Yes.
And my idea is that we should bring more people together, regardless where they are and regardless where they want to start, and make that easier for them. Yes. Instead of putting labels onto them and say, hey, this is stuff only for makers and you belong here, and this is only for pro devs and you belong there, and then no one talks to each other because we put them in different boxes. Yeah. And my goal is just to unite everyone and that we can all learn and share more.
Absolutely. All of the pro developers who are in the Microsoft 365 area should know about Power Automate as an example, rather than rebuilding that stuff or taking advantage of what's available around that. The classical story for sure in the Microsoft 365 area. And before we started recording, we had a really passionate discussion related on the categorization. And we concluded that we should not put people on the boxes. But if you think about that, if you go back in, and we dinosaurs, me and Waldek used to always do this in the PnP Weekly, which says, a while back, you're at the same age as I am. Was it true? I can't remember. Anyway, so
you could be my father.
Excuse me?
Of course I can.
Today I learned.
When I came back from the Second World War, after the Winter Wars in Finland. No, just kidding. So no, I have no idea where I was. So in traditional Microsoft messaging, we've been unfortunately in the past dividing people either to MSDN or TechNet. If you're old enough to be seen MSDN and
admin or a dev.
You're either an admin or a dev. Then at some point we actually decommissioned the MSDN platform because it wasn't flexible enough and people were unable to contribute. Same happened for TechNet, and we combined everything to the docs.microsoft.com platform. But still in there, we do a pretty lousy job of we're always isolating people to different boxes. And that's not necessarily a good thing, because then we don't actually tell necessarily the right story.
Well, so the interesting thing about it is that, like with everything else, it has two sides to it the way I see it, right? So the one side is, if you choose to divide people into groups and you use that to gatekeep, right? So you will say, this is stuff for admins and this is not for you because you are an admin, you're a dev, right? So like this doesn't belong to you. Like that doesn't help anybody. Sure. Because at the end of the day, like if you think about PowerShell, is it an admin tool or a dev tool? Like the amount of stuff.
It depends.
Yes, exactly.
Exactly. So in theory, it's for both. But then, right? So like from that point of view, dividing people, like attaching a label to person doesn't help anybody, because it prevents people from learning stuff that could help them in their work.
Yep.
On the other hand, if you think about it, oftentimes we say, I'm a Microsoft employee. That is a label. I belong to a group of folks. I identify myself as a part of the group, a group. I'm a part of PnP team. And so that is another group, right? So that says something about me, about the way I think about myself. And that is just my perception, and it's fluid, right? Because like it will change over time. But from that point of view, it describes like what is the group of folks I would go to if I ever need help? Like who are my people, if you like, right? So, and there are always folks who will think of themselves as React devs or Angular devs, Node dev, TypeScript, because maybe these are communities where they spend majority of their time, right? So there is something to say to think about the content and the audience and the target audiences and the labels that people might have attached to them, but it definitely shouldn't be used as gatekeeping measure.
Or isolated boundaries on information.
So I think in my daily life as a consultant, I always get asked, hey, Luise, how should I use that tool? And I always say, no, that's not the right approach. It's not about the tool you want to use or you don't want to use or you don't know how to use that. It's about which goal you want to accomplish. So I perhaps have better use case. So, and if we just put that approach into our discussion, so, hey, okay, I want, of course, solve a problem. Just like perhaps I need just like an overview about anyone's agenda or whatever it is. And how could I do that? So, of course, I could do custom development and fiddle around and need a 6-month project for that, at least, or longer. Or perhaps I could just simply do some awesome stuff with Graph Toolkit, or I can use a Power App, or I could combine that, and possibilities are endless, of course. And if I have a certain use case, then I could have a look at and with which tool can I accomplish this goal fast or cheap or whatever is my approach. But I do not think that I first need to identify, hey, I'm on X and therefore I can only use A, B, and C. And if I'm Y, I can only use D and E. So it's
Now and for the future, what we're planning to do related on, should we talk about slightly the plans on what are we planning to do related on this area?
Ideas.
And obviously, for anybody who's listening or watching, and the feedback is always welcome. Everything what we do within the community design is for the community. So hopefully community contributes back and say, we need to have X and Y and Z, so we're able to do that. So how would I put it this? And we certainly don't want to dictate what is the right way or wrong way of doing things. We want to do what is needed in our community efforts. But should we quickly talk about how are we planning to kind of remove the isolation of the messaging?
Quickly.
Yeah, very quickly. So, of course.
Questions?
So of course we don't want to divide people just for gatekeeping reasons. We just want to lower entry barriers and move everyone closer together, and just like make it more beginner friendly and more approachable to just start, because everyone is a beginner in some kind of stuff. No one knows everything, and so we all have those today I learned moments. And I think if we have more content like, why did no one tell me?
Windows and V for me? So Windows.
Yeah, like the Windows and V for you. Exactly. But there's just like all kind of stuff that is super helpful. And as I said, everyone is a beginner at some stuff. And to make it just like more approachable and more easy to start, and then to learn together without having to think, oh, everyone knows that.
Yeah. So
without feeling intimidated, yes.
So if we think about the journey of the Microsoft 365, some of us has been obviously I'm employed by Microsoft, so I've been around for Microsoft 365 for quite a long time. But some of people are still, as a new person, they're coming to the Microsoft 365. And for those we're using in our community efforts, as an example, we have the Sharing is Caring initiative, where Luise has been active as well, and many others like David and Hugo and multiple other people on that side as well, April, and I'm missing people. But anyway, so there's multiple people helping on people to get started on contributing and consuming the samples and documentation and all of that what we have. And that's really for the fact that we've seen more and more feedback related on the material what Microsoft keeps on releasing is too advanced. So and people are struggling to get jumped on board as a new persons to learn how do we do Microsoft 365, how do I get started, how do I get on the things, which on the other hand, it's completely understandable because there's a lot of people who've been around for a long time. For them, that might be like completely logical, but for the new people, how would you know?
But again, even then, right? Just because you're around for a long time doesn't mean that you know everything, because things change a lot. Like whatever you have learned, like maybe you've been around for 20 years and all you've done was ASP.NET Dev. So you might not know anything about Blazor, webhooks, Teams, bots. Sure. But you might be very well versed in ASP.NET. Perfect, right? So I think that the challenge that we have is like, one, what can you do across all 365? 2, where do you start?
Yep.
And then 3, like get like gradual resources, because like there's so much stuff out there. There is videos, there is docs, there is samples. How do you find the appropriate resources, and what path do you take, right? Like in the past, we would probably Luise, I don't know about you, but Vesa and I, like we are from the age that we would buy like thick books. And you would read the book like cover to cover, and you would know everything about whatever you want to do, like Access development, Word development, SharePoint development. Like we come from that age. That is no longer the case nowadays. Like
exactly.
That I did that.
There was Access development, and there was Access online even. So
there you go. Right. So, and that's no longer the case, right? So if you want to learn everything, like often we get like into what feels to me like you will get in the, like imagine you enter cinema and you go like get into a middle of a movie. Like you'd have no idea the context, story, who's who. You like you watch something, you're like, huh. And then like slowly, eventually you will wrap your head around because you missed the first part. So what is the first part on 365? Where do we start?
Unless it's a Christopher Nolan movie, which actually flips everything upside down, but that's a separate discussion.
But then you will never know how it ended.
That's
and
true.
You're like, okay, so I know how, but how?
How did I get there? So I think if so sometimes I read a tutorial about these are the 8 steps you need to do to achieve X. And the second sentence is, but I will skip step 1 to 4 because everyone knows how to do that.
Yes. You need a token.
And then I'm like,
the classic story.
Perhaps everyone, but so not me. I don't know how to do that because I just searched on the internet to know how to do X, not to do X if you already have half of the knowledge.
Yes.
I did not Google that.
Cool thing, like in this place, put a token. What is a token? Where do I get one? And that happens to be like the most.
Why would I need it? Do they have it in pink as well? So it's just
you don't have a token? What?
I need a pink token. I need,
So yes, exactly.
Apparently, yellow tokens are the best ones. They have the most power. Yellow, trust me, yellow tokens.
I thought it was orange.
Oh, those are really good as well. So, but apparently yellow, like the Batman behind of your back. So.
Yeah. Cool.
So.
Okay, so it's like more bias-free guidance, which does not assume that you already have some kind of knowledge because it's so obvious to know that.
Tokens.
Yeah.
And not using too many acronyms or just tech jargon to just make it easier and let learners know, hey, you're not alone and it's totally okay to not know step 1 to 4.
Yep. Yeah, and we are even working on this is something that's just a preview on what's potentially happening. So we're working with Anna Chu and a few others from the tech community side of the house as well. So we're building this kind of a new location, which is really intended to be then the not in the sense that you need to select which product your question is all about, rather at one location where you can go and ask a question. And then the intention is that we get more MVPs and Microsoft employees on helping on all of the questions in that location, rather than you need to know the forum and the right location where you go and ask the question. I think in the older, let's say, tech community, some of the people who are listening this probably can relate on this one. Whenever there was a TechNet forums, the most used answer was basically, this is the wrong forum to ask this question, go in here. So which is like,
I know that one.
Yes, exactly.
And then also another one like this is not the right way to ask question because you miss XYZ. You need to ask it in a specific format. You need to do this. It's like very.
How do I use A? No, you shouldn't use A. You should use B instead. And how do I use B?
Why? Why do you want to use B?
Oh yeah. Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. So trying to create a location, trying to create a mentality also in the community where we can help each other. Any question is welcome. There's no such thing as a stupid question because we all been there as a starting on learning new things. We need to have a location where we can go as a safe location, where we're not being judged on the level of question and people are helping. That's really the intention of what we're planning to do.
And I would call it a home.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Absolutely. Now we do have quite a lot of articles as well. Should we jump on articles and then get back on the discussion?
Yes.
Because
I would love to see articles.
We had 4 weeks off, so there's quite a lot of stuff.
We slacked. So
I know. We do apologize. We're probably missing a lot of awesome blog posts, but we're now prioritizing those which had the hashtag PnP Weekly in them, plus the official ones. So please remember, if you are writing cool stuff, please use the hashtag PnP Weekly, so that we're able to locate them from the Twitter tweet. Hashtags are, by the way, super important when you're tweeting. Don't miss them. Now, and if you don't know why, we should probably have a show on that. No, anyway. Or maybe we should ask Hanselman to talk about that in his TikTok videos, because those are really awesome.
Code Talk, yes.
Yes, indeed. Why is hashtag important? Anyway, so let's talk about the article. So the few Microsoft ones, and let me actually zoom this slightly. So what's new in Microsoft Teams? The December one came live on Tuesday last week. And basically, again, a summary on what's happening. So every single month, there's new stuff in the Microsoft Teams, more and more investments on this area. One of my favorites is absolutely this one, and the 5 minutes left in your scheduled meeting. We've been using this internally in Microsoft for a long time, but it's actually a great reminder on, we are actually running out of time. So maybe it should be 10 minutes left as well, but maybe it should be configurable. But it's a really good way of getting a notification, which, by the way, we're getting in 1 minute because of our original booking time. Now, choose the audio and video settings, and this is something we've been using as well, so you can actually adjust the configurations and all of that. What's new in calling, multiple number dialing, what's new on devices, a lot of stuff there as well. Cortana is getting more and more integrated in our Microsoft 365 areas, which is really cool. I think it was a smart, let's say, decision for reprioritizing Cortana towards business rather than consumer side. I think we have plenty of consumer side automations, but then having a business automation tooling and an assistant is really cool. Well, obviously, depending on a culture. In Finland, we simply don't use audio-based actions because we just don't. It's not a natural thing.
I don't want to talk to my home either.
Exactly. Hello, home. Well, some people.
Who are you?
Some people. Cool amount of new devices. A lot of new stuff in the chats and collaboration. Integrations on Yammer. Yammer is getting directly natively. Semi-natively integrated in Teams as well. Originally, it's like, wait, what? But it is the community side of the house on that side. That's a weird. What is that lady doing? Anyway,
joining the meeting.
Yes. This is actually really cool as well. So when we are creating a team from an existing SharePoint site, you can do automatic associations directly as a tab in the Teams, and then you can really easily have a nice setup available in the Teams side, and a lot of other stuff as well. Plenty of investments obviously in here. There was a discussions in the autumn that Microsoft has been crushing all the competition in Microsoft Teams, which is we've been doing pretty decently, but it doesn't mean that we're stopping. There's so much to do and so much improvements available. Now, what else on the Teams side? 4 ways to deliver better meetings with apps with Microsoft Teams. Really cool setup is that we are able to create now apps to Microsoft Teams. So basically pre-meeting apps inside connect during meeting apps and post-meeting apps. So you can actually have more, let's say, better collaboration together with meeting attendees. And we are adding support for all of these in SPFX as well, because I represent ODSP, and then you can build this with ODSP, SharePoint framework as well. Powerful ways of connecting SharePoint team sites, files, and lists pages, and this is basically what we saw already. So you're able to easily then create complex teams. So you're able to select what's available and how it's being published, which is really cool. And there's going to be more and more related on embedding portals in Microsoft Teams later this year, which is really cool. Not just the SharePoint Pages app, but much more than that. So really, really cool setup. On the SharePoint side as well, a typical setup, the monthly summary from Mark Cashman. Good, by the way, discussion with Teshas related on Microsoft Teams integration. So how the Microsoft Teams is being integrated together with SharePoint. And essentially, we are merging the products one by one together. Is that a right way of saying that? Maybe, I don't know. So, but they're getting closer.
Merge. I would say that it should be less of a place you go to as opposed to like you can access whatever you need, whatever you are. So basically in context of your work.
Exactly. Absolutely. It's not about one product versus other product. It's more on, hey, I can access information from one location regardless where you are, which is the right way of thinking that. A lot of branding capabilities, improvements, send SharePoint Pages to Yammer, SharePoint Success side, a new template in the lookbook side, which is really cool as well. Administrative improvements. There's the Teams integration. Third time, by the way, we're mentioning this one in the blog posts. Microsoft Lists adoption, and a lot of other stuff in the OneDrive side as well. Improvements on there. There's a lot of interesting stuff also on the OneDrive consumer side, which we're typically not covering in here, but it's getting better and better. Seeing all of the My Pictures and everything else is really cool in the OneDrive consumer, by the way. Craft Toolkit 2.0 improvements, all of that stuff, which is really, really cool. This is more for the holiday season, but hey, saving these and using these in July would be actually really cool, just for the sake of it. That would cause a lot of questions. So, and a lot of stuff obviously happening in January as well. Now, one of the things what was announced within the last month was also the Microsoft Graph Toolkit 2.0. So that's now out, new functionalities, new controls, making it easier to consume, and constant improvements on that side as well, which is really, really cool. One of the favorite ones, absolutely, it's a person card, which is basically aligned with what you can see natively within for example, in a SharePoint product, which is really, really cool. So it's using search behind of the scenes, and again, using the graph and then surfacing the information efficiently. Really, really cool. Microsoft Graph Mailback, use Graph for like professional. This is the new Mailback series where there's going to be additional set of blog posts from MVPs related on different capabilities and all of that. So really cool stuff as well. Heading to our guest, Luise. What are we actually typically blocking from your side? What are the things what you're writing about?
Well, so all right, whatever I learn quite a lot. As we already talked about it, I don't like to be put into boxes, and I don't like really labels. So sometimes I just more like focus on graph. Sometimes I post about digital clutter because it really relates to New Year and just like have a fresh start. And sometimes it's reflecting on my own work and, hey, how do I avoid to overcommit? And if I don't know how to do that, I will blog about it. And once I blogged about it, I found a solution to not overcommit, and then I don't do. So yes, as I said, I like Lego. This is why you see Lego pictures on every blog post. This week I did not blog yet. But it's Monday.
Well, it's Monday, so
it's Monday, so perhaps this is a good excuse for that. But I have something in mind to blog about because I'm working on a solution. Usually in my day-to-day life as a consultant, people ask me, "Hey, Luise, we want to roll out Teams, but how would we then work in Teams?" And I will always say, hey, well, this depends. And they will ask, yeah, but on what does it depend? And I will say, yeah, so the structure of your team and how many you are and how many Sharepoint libraries you will need and which metadata we will need to add. And if you use lists or which buckets in Planner you will use and so on. And at the end of the day, we just like come to conclusions and we will write everything down. And then someone needs to create that team, just like not only creating the team, but also the additional libraries and the lists and the planners and so on. Yeah. And I got tired of those workshops, which I call the collaboration contract, because it's somehow we define how we want to work together. And this is very powerful as a workshop, but I really got tired of doing those. And I templatized this workshop as a power app. And I thought about, hey, okay, so I need to first give knowledge, just like this is a channel and this is what you should do in a channel, and then ask people, hey, which kind of channel would you like to have, just like a private channel or a standard channel, and which tabs do you want to pin in those channels? And after a user made their entries, just like, yeah, I want to have 3 lists, and these are the columns for those lists, I would just like collect everything and provision the team of their dreams, which means that every team gets exactly the workspace they need to work, and that they get the knowledge as well, and that they can just like make their better decisions on how they would work together. So this is Luise, what I had in mind.
Yeah, so that's the one which is going to happen this week. Should we actually jump on your screen after we go through the articles? And let's actually have a look on that one, because that is a really cool solution. It's using Power Automate and Power Apps. Power Apps is a UX for collecting the information, and then Power Automate to actually make things happen, and then Craft behind of the scenes, because Microsoft Craft has the API for Microsoft Teams. So making that happen. But let's jump on there after we would go through the article, so we can get more clarity in here. Now, Waldek, on the CLI, and we had a new release coming, and the latest release is Correct. What I want to talk about here.
Yeah, so last week we had new release that wrapped all of the work that we've done in December, and already now we had new pre-release of the next version that will come at the end of January that includes things like converting files to PDFs, sending adaptive cards, really easily creating AAD apps. It's like significant improvements that simplify the way you do things in 365. So I would definitely encourage you, if you do anything in these areas, give it a try. Let us know whether you like it or not and where we can improve.
Yeah, and just let's recap as an example this one. Why is this an important thing? What does this actually simplify? Just for those who do not actually understand.
Imagine that you build an app in your team, and you want to be able to share the AAD app, or to give everybody on the team ability to create the same AAD app in their tenant. You can write a Word doc that will include all screenshots, and every single time you want to have an app, you will click through the whole portal in Azure. Or
with the imagine that and scopes and resources and everything else,
with every like type of app, whether it's a desktop app, daemon app, web app, whether it has like permissions, authorization APIs, and whatnot, right? So there are 20 things you can set about this app, right? And then everybody on the team needs that. 1, 2, if you want to have it in a CI/CD pipe, right? So imagine that every single night you want to have a build and you want to test that. So again, like somebody has to put that in place. When your app is done, you want to give it to customers, right? So how will they put it in place? So there is no easy way for you to do that. You can do it with Azure CLI, but it's quite verbose. right? It's like there is no one command that does everything. So you will do a little bit here, and then you have to do 5 other things to get everything in play. So with that, we aim to offer you an opinionated way, an easy way to create AAD apps. It might not do everything you need. So if you have an edge case, could be the case that we don't support it yet. But we think that based on the experience that we have and the work we have done, we cover majority of needs that people have when building apps on 365. So we and for that we cover a lot of examples. Like if you click on the command name in here, you will go into the help. If you scroll all the way down to examples, like you will get basically like ready to go examples for the most common types of apps you might need. So if you need a desktop app, if you need an app with secret, if you need an app with access to graph, like copy paste that, adjust to your need, and you're good to go. And it's just a single line. It's not like a whole script.
Yep, making it super easy for people to do the needed registration, which, by the way, should be super easy to do because having the registration is just the start, and then implementing the application.
It is prerequisite, absolutely.
Exactly. Cool. And moving on other things. So David Ramalho had a blog post related on take control of files created on SharePoint that are not published, which is actually a good classic, let's say, challenge as well, because you can't override a file which is not checked in if it's checked out or there's only a draft version. So he's actually showing here how to use PowerShell, PnP PowerShell, to how to connect using the MFA option and connect, and then scanning through and detecting if the file has been checked out, and if it is checked out, how to actually restore that. Now, this is from Sergey Sergeyev and the SharePoint framework with ESLint. Do you want to explain what is ESLint, Waldek? Putting you on the spot.
Sure. So in the past, we had TSLint. That was the way to define rules that verify that your code is written in given way. So imagine that you have specific way to name variables or a specific way to use single quotes and not double quotes, right? So with ESLint, TSLint, you can define rules that will automatically check all of your code at once and not have you go manually file by file, line by line to check if everything is aligned with you. The cool thing is that it's very useful if you work in a team, because then everybody will be able to do the same check for them consistently, as opposed to one person being on a team. Like every day you will pick straws, and the person with shorter straw will need to do the code base check this day.
It's kind of like define the coding standards and then again use the ESLint to double check that people are following up on the coding standards. In a reusable, consistent way, both locally and your builds, right? And then ESLint is this. So in the past, for TypeScript, we had TSLint. TSLint is deprecated now, is being used. And now we have ESLint with TS rules. So this is all about like, how can you use ESLint in SPFX? Yep. Excellent. Really good stuff. Absolutely. And then now getting it here, Leon Armstrong had a testing out patching in the new PnP PowerShell. So PnP PowerShell 1.0 is going to GA actually this week, so which is pretty cool. And it's much more performant than the old PnP PowerShell. So this is the new PowerShell using PowerShell Core, and you can use it in Azure Functions and all of that stuff, which is really cool. So super easy automation. And basically, there's also patching in place. So the Leon is basically showing how to use patching and how to execute. And this is actually pretty cool. 100 lines, 100 times add PnP list item to the patch, and then invoke as a one command. And that's it. So super performant. Rather than calling the server every single time, you are able to create a patch and then execute that as a single execution, which is really, really cool. 4.100 list items, and I think we had, without patching, 42 seconds. So 10 times saved time. Yeah, that's pretty decent. That's a lot, by the way. That's a Finnish way of saying really good job. That's pretty decent. So no overreaction. So it's a good job. It's okay. Now, Microsoft List for Administrators, the ultimate guide from João Herrera. Basically walking through the different options, what are the list templates, how to create them, and how to enable, for example, how to disable or enable the modern list template IDs and all of that stuff. So really cool summary on different administrative settings which are available for Microsoft Lists. Really, really cool stuff. This one is from this weird guy called Waldek. So do you want to actually talk through? Yes.
Yes, of course I want to talk about it. So the idea is that you have an app, whether that's desktop app, web app, mobile app, and you want to do more with an app. So you want to tap into this new audience on 365 because there's a lot of people, a lot of companies from small businesses to Fortune 500 who work with 365 every day. So why wouldn't they be able to use your app in their work already? And in this article, I walk through the steps, like what approach would you take to bring your app to that audience? And there are just 3 steps that are enable auth, like let them sign in to your app with their work account, with the account that they already have. 2, tap into all of insights and info that they already have stored in their work through Graph. And 3, bring relevant pieces of your app into 365 into experiences that they already use, so that your app is not the island to which people need to come in order to use it, but that they can use your app or pieces of the app that are relevant to their work in the context of that work. If you want to know more about it, I would encourage you to read the article and get back to me if you have any questions, concern, or if you want to know more about anything.
Yep. Yeah. And really cool stuff, absolutely. Now, then we have 2 YouTube videos, one for Gisli, and this is around calling third-party APIs in SPFX. So basically walking through the different options, so the demo, prerequisite code overview, and then closing comments on that. So really cool videos as well. He's publishing all the time new videos and guidance videos in YouTube, so you probably want to sign in and subscribe that channel. The second is from our Italian friend Paolo. He has quite a few actually new videos. I didn't want to actually open them up here one by one, but this is the latest, which is around using adaptive cards in Microsoft Teams task modules. There's quite a few actually adaptive card related videos, what he's been doing recently. And what's cool about Paolo's videos as well is that they're typically under 5 minutes or 5 to 10 minutes. So if you have a lunch break, you can briefly check what is it all about, and then you can learn more if needed. So really cool stuff as well.
I think the most important part is why adaptive cards?
Yes. Well, Dan, now,
Luise,
do you want to answer that question? Why adaptive cards?
Why adaptive cards? Because first, it's the future of notifications, because it does not only distractify me, but just like lets me take action. Second, it's just like super easy to author them, and it's even easy to templatize them. So making it more easy for more people to just like author a card and have a benefit from them. And third thing, they just integrate seamlessly into Microsoft Teams, and this is where we all work. And it's just like they're just like beautiful and easy to use and easy to author, and I love them.
Yep. That's a good way of putting that. Thank you, Luis. And then on the next article, Bartman had a good article read on Microsoft 365 multi-tenant apps working with application permissions in the Microsoft Graph. So walking through Microsoft Graph, walking through the different options and settings and implications on that. Bartman works for the Valo intranet, and I know that they're tackling a lot of this stuff in their solutions as well. But good, again, simplification of the solution, not too much code and explaining what happens, and then obviously taking that learning and then extend on that one. So really good stuff. Using Microsoft Teams native API endpoints from Robin, and then basically explaining what are the different endpoints available. Now, native APIs in Microsoft Teams are not intended necessarily to be used by third parties. So there's no guarantee that this would not change. And if you have a dependency on them and native APIs, if they're not documented, they might actually change without a notice. It's the same thing as with SharePoint REST APIs, which are not documented. We do not guarantee that you can call them that we would not break you, so to say. If you hit a Graph API or documented API, then you're okay. Super clear on that. The fact that you can do something doesn't mean you should be doing that. So, but again,
can we frame that?
Yeah, yes.
Just because you can doesn't mean you should.
Exactly.
I will make a sticker out of that.
Yeah, that was a classic statement which we just started using in MCM, the Microsoft Certification Master Certification Program, from a day one. So just because you can doesn't mean you should. Now we're getting sticker out of it. Yay!
Yay!
Finally, after all these years.
Custom Vesa sticker.
Good. How to use chatbots inside of SharePoint Pages. So basically how to embed chatbots. Just a summary on that one. kind of a high level, but this is step-by-step walking through on the different steps, how to make that happen from Renato Romano. So really cool as well. So we can, with there's multiple demos, there's actually even the bot framework people from Microsoft Engineering provided samples as an application extension or a web part, how to do this in a secure way. So really cool stuff as well.
Cool.
This is from Nandip Nahan, timer-based button text in a SharePoint framework. Relatively small, simple thing, but you can actually see that in practice. So it basically starts a timer walking down and then something happens. More, to be honest, a JavaScript or a TypeScript technology rather than SPFX specific thing. But hey, this is absolutely cool. You're basically setting an interval and then you're executing that. And something code is being executed based on the interval. Get user information and photo using Microsoft Graph Batch from Shawa Mendes. So he's been working on this really, really cool samples, and he's been doing absolutely beautiful extensions for Microsoft Teams and for SharePoint as a web part. And how do I get the user photo and how do I get access on this information? Really good blog post on that one and how things actually work when we're executing things. And that's basically the individual function what he's using as getting the information from the Microsoft Graph. So really cool stuff, absolutely. So Clint had a good blog post also making the move from SharePoint PnP PowerShell Online to PnP PowerShell. This is quite timely, like I said, PnP PowerShell, the new one, will be released this week, and that's the plan, unless there's any last minute, let's say, delays. Now it's still in preview, but it's going to go GA as a version 1.0 really, really, really soon. And Clint is one of the PowerShell gurus for sure, explaining how it actually works in PowerShell Core and what can be done. So really cool stuff as well as a summary on how to get started. A few more. Rewriting InfoPath and SharePoint Designer workflows to Power Apps and Power Automate. So really, really, really important blog post from Siddharth Wakhasia, who's an MVP as well. So really walking through the, well, is it required step? Highly recommended step of moving away from InfoPath, which has been completely deprecated, meaning that we're not investing on it. Plus the fact that the workflows are gradually going to go away as well, and we're replacing them with Power Apps and Power Automate. So how do I do the transition? What are the things to consider and all of that? So really cool, great blog post for sure. Free images, image sources, Emily Mancini. Emily, by the way, was the one which I was missing. Sorry, Emily, in the AKMS Sharing is Caring initiative. Emily has been really active on that side as well. But good blog post related on how do I get free images when we're writing content for the customers or when we're creating presentations. So good kind of a reference on where do we find good images, because that's a classic challenge as well. There's such a huge difference on having high-end images in your material rather than somebody drawing something.
You mean?
Well, yeah, it depends on who's drawing. If it's Luise, then it's a different discussion. But
yeah, exactly. I cannot draw.
We don't talk about that.
Yeah, we don't. Of course, that's past kind of now, but it's still you can draw. That's the key point. Automate project documentation from Azure DevOps to SharePoint on Microsoft 365 from Rick Brown. Really cool story as well. So explaining how to automate documentation and how to do automation as part of the build pipeline. So really, really cool stuff for sure. And explaining how to make things happen using the CLI, Microsoft 365, CLI for Microsoft 365. I can't, Microsoft 365, not Microsoft 365 CLI, it's CLI for Microsoft 365.
Yes,
so,
it is.
It is indeed. But yeah, so really cool stuff and explaining through that one as well. Now, let's actually get back, Luise, if you don't mind, on your screen related on the solution, what we were doing. You were explaining that you got frustrated on having exactly the same discussion with many of the customers because the answer is always, well, it depends.
It depends, yes,
it depends
exactly.
on how we're approaching things. It depends on what's your objective. And you have a automation for coming up on that and with the blog post, right?
Yes, exactly. So our blog post is out this afternoon, but I would love to showcase what I had in mind. So I would just share my screen. And I will first need to introduce you to someone. So please meet Carmen. I teamed up with Carmen to do that because first I thought I will not do that alone because there's always a better together. Second, I want to give someone a chance to just like gain more visibility who has not the visibility right now. So just like helping someone who's not that visible right now. And I had the idea of, if we have a solution, then just like putting everything on GitHub to open source that so that everyone can use that and perhaps tweak it a little bit to just like adjust their needs. So if you don't do that by now, please follow Carmen. And I hope that I will see 160 and 161 follows there very, very soon. Okay, so nothing you right now. Okay, so what we had in mind was templatizing those workshops, and I would just show you the Power App, which is still a little bit work in progress. So you can see some debug buttons right here, which work to just like initialize my session again. And what I do is I ask people, is it really the thing you want to do? Do you really want to create a new team? And if someone says, yeah, I just want to have a chat, or perhaps I want to have a loose community, which would be more a Yammer use case, then I would say, okay, I will add this process. But if someone says, yeah, we want to have a cool workspace to have discussions and make our project happen, then I will say, okay, so then we will just provision your team for you, and then I give some knowledge about roles, and perhaps I will just like go into preview mode as well, and about channels, and I will log all the steps my user does, and I pre-fill that for you. So the team name would be the Awesome Super Team, and the team description would be being awesome, and the team owner would be Yoda. And after that, I give some information about metadata, and now that my user is already literate in what do we use metadata for and why shouldn't we put everything in cascading folders and cascading subfolders, again, I would just say, okay, I want to have a status column, and that's a choice. That's not a single line of text. And then I would say, okay, perhaps this is let's say yes, no, and maybe, and ask your mom. And
that's the most important option always.
Of course it is. And in case you hear this right now, Mom, I love you. Okay, so do you need another column? So if I say yes, I will just repeat the form. If I say no, this form is here at its end. So I will just proceed to the next step and just like iterate through everything I want to have, just like lists and libraries and so on. Planner buckets, of course, as well. And after that, I would just collect everything which my user set in a Sharepoint list, and that Sharepoint list then triggers a flow. And now Carmen comes into place. Carmen wanted to learn about Azure Logic Apps. So I was like, hey, I already created that flow, but would you like to explore how this would work in a Logic app? So this is what Carmen is actually right now working on. And in the end project, you can just choose if you want to use the flow, which runs in the context of a user. So we will have some issues with that, or if you want to do that in a Logic app. What my flow does, it's pretty easy. So, of course, I needed to register an app in Azure AD and had some API permissions on Graph. But now there is a nice in preview action in Power Automate, which says, hey, I can just create a team. So this is quite new-ish. So previously, I needed to have an application for that as well. But I would just create a team, and I will add the members that my user entered to that team. And then we have kind of a problem. So the problem is when you create a team, and you click for the very first time on that Files tab, it will always tell you we're not ready yet, regardless how much time passed. So I will just need to check if that already happened or not, and just like work around that. And what I do is I just check if the HTTP code of that site equals 200. And if yes, I go ahead. And if not, I just add a little delay, which you can just see right here, to make that more easy, because otherwise I will run into a 404 error. So that
just
would be a little bit painful.
Two hands up on the. Do you, Waldek, want to go first?
What is HTTP status 200 and 404?
Yeah,
good question.
404 is that's not going to happen. It's not there, and 200 is okay. So basically, I just check if everything works already, and if it works.
Yeah, so sorry, related on that one. So one thing what you can do potentially, and I think we're doing this in the PnP provisioning engine, which Erwin and Paolo and Bert are pretty much leading nowadays. I haven't written Go for that for many years anymore because they don't allow me to write any more code, which is probably a good thing. So, but anyway, if I remember correctly, we solved that one while back in a way that if we hit the files collection of that team, then actually that creates the SharePoint site behind the scenes. So we probably want to revisit that and have a discussion on that with those people. But anyway, just a note on that. So there is a delay. So the SharePoint site behind of Microsoft Teams is only getting created when it's first time needed, not by default whenever we create it.
And in my scenario, it is not needed because I'm right now in the process of provisioning that team. Yes. So no user will get notified. Yes. So no one will click there and say, hey, Files tab.
Yes.
Which always returns as, hey, we're not ready yet. And if you
but there are ways to get around on that, but we'll work on that.
So I found a way because I identify myself as a problem solver. So I found a way to get around that, and I chose that way, but pretty happy to learn about other ways as well. So what I then do is I had a scenario in mind that we could provide just like additional training content for new owners, new guests, and even new members, so that everyone just like gets the content they need. And so I get some files and I create the lists and I create the libraries and I create text fields and I create choice fields. So again, this is just a minimal Viber product, just like a test if this could work. And so I just make everything happen in that flow what the user already said that they wanted to have in my Power App. Yeah. And I use a graph a lot. I did something with the send an HTTP request to SharePoint just to see if that works as well. And yes, it does. Although I do like the graph actions way more because for me, they're way easier to understand and they are pretty much better documented. So that was easier for me. And I pinned the document to a tab and I post a welcome message and I pinned a list to a tab. And then I did something that I learned from Laura. And Laura said, please always delete the Wiki Tab, which is, of course, a great idea. Because if a user removes that tab, everything is just gone and it's hard to delete it. And we do not want that something is hard deleted just because someone removes a tab. So I would just get all the wikis that are there in your freshly created team, which is just like one, and then delete that and replace it with a OneNote notebook so that this is already pinned.
Yeah, the one that I wanted to ask about it, like, so if you look at this flow, it's very elaborate, and it's like I count, I don't know, 2, 4, 5, 6 HTTP calls, meaning payloads, API, parsing responses. How did you find out about everything you need to get this to work?
docs.microsoft.com.
Good. Documentation.
Yeah, so it's good when you can read. It's just like basically it's what I always do. I just wonder, hey, could I do that? And then I just try and I fail. And then I read the documentation. And then I think, yeah, but next time I will read the documentation first. And then I try again and I fail.
Ain't gonna happen.
Yeah.
So it's I'm not getting smarter in that, but I always recommend, hey, read the documentation because it's pretty awesome. And of course, I ask people on Twitter. I ask, hey, it does not work. Why does it not work? And then people are trying to just like do that as well, and then it does not work. And I say, okay, so why doesn't it work? And then it turns out we made the same mistake, but when talking about it, usually you come
to read the docs.
Yeah, so you should carefully read the docs, just like not skimming them, not thinking, hey, I already know that stuff, but just carefully reading the docs.
Get the code sample, right? I just want to get a code sample. I don't care about theory. It's like, no, I don't permissions. No, give me the code.
Yeah. So, and of course, I also have a rubber duck, but I do not use it to debug. But I use the Unikitty to debug my solutions, which means I talk the Unikitty through everything. And if it doesn't work, I tell her.
Is there the angry kitty as well?
Sorry.
Is there an angry kitty in the house as well?
No.
Because when Unikitty actually gets angry, then it goes to the psycho mode.
Yeah, no. She's
okay.
not. She's
in the movie. It's in the movie.
Yeah,
yes,
I know. But no. It's all good. And when just like thinking out loud, it's more easy to get there. And yes, I have quite a lot of calls, and so this is why I just like don't want to expand everything of those loops here, but yes, that's the flow how it looks right now, and of course it needs some polishing, and we do another version on logic apps because this comes with some advantages. But basically, I created a nice and beautiful interface in a Power App and put the logic outside of the app so that the app is very easy and very clean, and as well easy adaptable.
Yeah. Can you summarize the advantages to move this to the logic apps?
Yeah. Well, so first, a usual flow runs in the context of a user, which means that we have the same disadvantages like storing our files in OneDrive. So OneDrive is a good point if it's just like my personal stuff. But this seems to be more a business critical process, just like automating the provision of Teams. And of course, we could put some approval in it as well. So I did not want to showcase that because we already saw that a lot of times before. But if this is the way to create a team, and my user now leaves the company or is on maternity leave or whatever happens, we just busted that. So we don't want to use that. Plus, data for all my flow runs, they're only there for 28 or 30 days. So that's because of GDPR, because it's personal user data, and that's bad as well. And with Logic app, I have more options, just like to maintain it and to put it also into a decent pipeline, because I can't do that as a non-traditional developer doesn't mean that there should be no one to really take care of that, because way often, this is what I see at my customers, someone makes an app or creates a flow or creates a bot, and they don't leave the company, but their minds leave that project. That means that they do not focus on that anymore, and they don't improve that, and somehow they abandon it. And then we create a lot of technical debt. This is, of course, super expensive, and that's not the desired goal.
Yeah. Good considerations. Now we are running really long again today, so maybe it is time to actually close up gradually. Can we? Yes, excellent. Closing that one. But thank you, Luise, on that clarification, and also on the why flow versus Power Automate versus Logic app, because that's super important discussion for people to understand. And the perspective, what you said, actually a really good one, is the logs related on, and the fact that is it a persona-based automation or is it a organizational automation? If it's organizational automation, maybe it should be in an Azure, because then it has all of the scalability and options in place. Now, let's put you, Luise, one random topic on a spot still. So you've been highly successful on growing your, let's say, visibility and your role within a community and being an MVP and going there and then growing on things. We talked about that maybe some other people are not as visible and maybe some not as, let's say, known by the community. What would be your recommendation? You obviously are helping Carmen, and we want to promote a lot of other new people. We want to help new people to gain visibility based on their contributions. Hopefully people understand that it helps if people contribute so we can promote them. But what would be your kind of, let's say, top 5 or 3, doesn't really matter, tips for a new person who's looking into getting an MVP or getting visibility in the community?
First, ask smart questions. Just like, and there are no dumb questions. Just like, it's me, hey, I don't know X, and who can help me with that? And of course, hashtags are important, super important, because it makes it so much easier to follow content and to search for related content as well. So use hashtags. This is already the second tip. So first ask, and second use hashtags. Third, offer help. So whatever it is, even if you had a tiny today I learned moment, there will be someone who does not know that and who will be very grateful to have this moment as well. So I repeat that every single month. And every single month, there are people that do not know if you accidentally close a browser tab, you can reopen it with Control and Shift and T. And it works.
Today I learned.
Every single day. Yeah.
So, and
but that's like sharing is caring. So sharing is important. So that's really good. Yeah.
So, and funny thing, it works in Visual Studio Code as well. So if you close accidentally a tab, you can just like reopen that. And I only know because muscle memory. So sharing is caring. So even if you think it's obvious and you're the only person who learned that today, there will be others that learned that as well.
Related on that one, actually, sorry, I need to elaborate because I've heard the same statement so many times. People are saying, yeah, but everybody knows about this. Which is completely nonsense. No, maybe true. You know about it. And something what I was thinking earlier today, because I've seen, let's say, YouTube videos and community demos where people come to the demo and they done the demo maybe in another context in the past, and then they do the demo like in the assumption that everybody already seen this, which is like, don't do that because they want to see the whole story. They want to see from a start to finish. And my kind of, let's say, analog was the fact that think about, let's say, Tom Jones, the famous singer from UK. What is the #1 song everybody keeps on asking him to sing? Or there's like top 5 songs, which every single gig, everybody is asking him to sing. And they want to hear the original version. They don't want to hear any jazz super version. No, I want to sing it special. No. People want to hear the basic setup from a start to finish because that's their expectation, and then they're happy. It's almost the same as with explanation of demos and learning through the basic Python. Don't assume that people know. Sorry.
Yeah. So then connect to people. So not only ask questions, but do connect and ask, hey, Waldek, would you like to have my perspective on XYZ? Yeah. Because everyone has their own perspectives. And if I just assume, but they already showcase a lot of times how an approval workflow could happen. Yeah, but everyone uses their own words to explain something. And perhaps I just hit another audience the way I explain it. Exactly. And this is always super valuable because different perspectives will just like broaden my view. And perhaps the way I explain it will just relate to some kind of audience a little bit more so that they will say, now I know why I should use that. So perhaps I will explain adaptive cards totally different than you would explain that. But that means that we get more people to use that actually.
Yeah.
And that's a good thing.
Totally.
And last but not least, join PnP calls. That is a really, really great way to get started. So at first, I had my concerns because I thought that would be super traditional developer centric and that there was no place for me because I never learned to code. But then I was just like so surprised because not only that those calls are super inclusive and that you feel everyone welcome, but they are pretty beginner friendly. So new people start each and every single day and no one can know everything, but it just feels good. And if you want to feel good, and if you want to learn something new, and if you want to connect to like-minded people who do not stop learning and do not give up too easily, then you should totally join these calls.
Yep, absolutely. And that's, by the way, a good way of doing those connections. Just being active on the chat on those calls and having a discussion, because that's just the easiest way. Oh, there's the familiar name, and there's the familiar name, and then in Twitter, maybe in social media, and maybe in some point of the future we'll even meet in physically, maybe in conference. Who knows? But we'll see whenever that happens. So that would be wild. We'll see. But we're way ahead of the, again, long on the time, but that's fine. Good discussion today. Thank you, Luise, for joining. Any last words, Waldek, from your side for this one?
So long, and thanks for all the fish.
And there we will come Adam Douglas, absolutely brilliant writer, for those who do not know that quote. We'll be back with the new PnP Weekly within a week, and stay safe, stay familiar, contribute, be active. We are here to listen, so let us know what's needed. So thanks, everybody. We'll be in touch. Thanks, Luise.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
And thank you, Waldek, as well.
Thank you, Vesa. Thank you.